Hello and welcome to the late edition of the January 2016 Academy of Worship podcast. We want to wish you a new year. Happy New Year. Not a new year. We wish you a new year.
Yeah.
We wish you a happy new year and welcome you here. My name is Chris Davis.
I'm Lauren Levisor.
And we are going to be your awesome sounding hosts for this session.
Yes.
I got nothing. That was my intro.
Sure. That works. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. Yay, a new year of podcasts. And you know what? We started it out right. We started it out like rock musician late. We're like the Axl Roses of podcasts. We came in late, and now we're starting halfway through the month.
What is the musician's version of fashionably late? Musically?
Musically, sure.
Late?
So we're here, finally. We have a lot of great stuff planned for this year. We're excited to keep going with this, and we love the fact that all you guys have been with us this whole time. We've gotten some ideas from you guys, and we want you to keep sending them in and letting us know if you have ideas for podcasts. We love to hear you guys' opinions on things, as long as they're constructive and we don't cry with them, because that's happened before. Lauren cries easily.
Sensitive.
That's right. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about relationships. Dun, dun, dun. Insert music here. It's not relationships like you think. We're going to be talking about the relationships between musicians in a worship team and in bands, I think, as a whole. You can apply this pretty much anywhere you play music. And Lauren has written up this awesome document, which we're referencing for this podcast because I think it's awesome, and he has a great mind for this stuff because he runs a ministry at his church where he has to deal with a lot of this stuff all the time and training musicians and kind of like keeping them, I guess, up to speed or fixing things that need fixing, or is that how you describe it? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we've got people coming from, they've only played in front of their mom or wife or something at home, or, all the way up to professional musicians in the Air Force Band.
Right.
They've played in garage bands or, everything in between. And so we've got to take all of that experience or lack of it and put it into a working group and kind of make things happen. So,
right.
Yeah, this kind of came from all that.
So I'm hoping he turns this into, I know he's going to start using this in his training and ministry and stuff, but we're going to kind of use it here. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of come from where Lauren's super comfortable, and that's the world of bass guitar. And we're going to be kind of applying that in other ways to other positions in the band, other players. So I'm going to be kind of interviewing Lauren and trying to pull stuff out of him. And so hopefully I don't make you cry, the sensitive thing.
All right.
I don't want any of that. So I need more coffee. All right. So let's just start from the top. I think hopefully you'd agree. By the way, if you'd been hearing that, I just realized that I had the heater on the whole time. So it was like psh in the background. I just turned it off.
realized I was hearing it until it went off.
Yeah. So recording 101 fail. I didn't turn off the sound in the room. Who cares? All right, here we go. So back to what I was saying. So the most important, I think, relationship as far as a bass player is concerned, musically speaking, obviously, would be between the bass and the drums.
Yes.
So I want you to tell us about that relationship and what it is that bass players specifically should be listening for, maybe how to communicate with a drummer, because I know that there can be some different languages spoken there as far as sounds and weird, awkward alien languages. So kind of go on that. So bass and drums, tell us about that relationship.
Well, if I have the opportunity to, I always try to get to know the drummer first. You don't always have that chance. Sometimes you're just thrown on a stage.
Take them out for dinner.
Well, yeah. We're talking about relationships. No, just chatting with them just a little bit can kind of give you an insight into how they think, what their personality is like. I don't know. It's one of those intangible things. Just kind of chat with them a little bit, try to figure them out, and then see what kind of experience they have.
Okay.
That's one of the things I try to do, because if there's somebody who hasn't played with a lot of groups, or they're just used to kind of doing their own thing,
like in their room,
they're probably not going to be focusing on the relationship that they have with the rest of the band members. They may be just playing whatever. And one of the things that I've run into is guys that will just play random kick patterns.
Oh, sure.
It'll never solidify into an actual part.
Oh, okay.
It'll just kind of be whatever his foot wants to do.
Like it doesn't repeat, doesn't
in any section of the band, and it never repeat. Yeah, and so that's hard for a bass player to lock into.
Sure. Talk about that. So I know a lot of people that listen to this probably already know this relationship exists, but talk about the power that comes when a bass player and a drummer, specifically with this kick drum, you guys lock. I mean,
yeah, this can mean the difference between just a general listener going, yeah, that band was kind of good. I don't know, like there wasn't a whole lot that drew me, to somebody going, oh, that band was really good. They may not be able to identify what that difference was, but a lot of times it can be that tightness that can come from a rhythm section that's really locked together.
Right. Yeah, I think that's an overlooked thing. In fact, I know it's an overlooked thing because in my experience, and I'm sure you can speak to this as well, I have seen that with drummers and even bass players that don't realize that kind of rhythmic relationship exists. And once you kind of work through it and get it to even begin to start happening, all of a sudden the music starts sounding tighter.
Yeah. I mean, there's even been times where we're playing some song, I don't know, probably from Hillsong or Bethel or, just the ones that we usually play. And it had a very specific kick pattern that to me just made the whole song.
Okay.
It just gave so much groove and power to the song where without it, it could just kind of make the song drone on for 8 minutes.
Gotcha.
And twice, I think, two different drummers they had overlooked that. They listened to it. They're like, okay, I generally know where the song's going, and I'll play.
Like they'll get the parts down. Like I know where the chorus is, I know where the verse is. Yeah, yeah.
But they hadn't really paid attention to that pattern, and they didn't realize that the bass was locking in with their kick on that. And so I taught that pattern to them. It was on the chorus or something.
Right.
And I was like, can we do that? Okay. And it was a little bit complicated for one of them, I think. They had to kind of figure out, okay, it was an interesting pattern. So they had to figure it out, and then we played it. And when we did, it brought the song to a whole new level.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I think that even I'm sure guitar players, people who are less experienced in a band situation, I think this relationship is probably one of the most important to making a band sound tight. And I think is one of those that, unless introduced to a person who doesn't know about it, will continually be overlooked. Like they'll just, like you said about the audience, like something's off, like it doesn't seem right. I think that will exist forever until people go like, it's the kick and the bass, or at least the drums and the bass have to lock in.
And bass can be looked at by kind of, well, any idiot can grab a bass and play.
Strings.
Yeah, you only play one note at a time. Anybody can do it. You can just throw somebody up there who like kind of plays guitar or something, and they'll be able to figure it out. Which there's some truth to that. But again, when you apply the things we're going to be talking about, this is what will help bring your entire team to a whole new level. Right.
And I guess that's a good point too for there's a lot of guitarists out there that get handed a bass, hey, our bass player couldn't make it or something. Can you please fill in? I think the number one thing to think about, besides just making sure you hit the right notes if you're not familiar with the bass, because it feels awkward because it's so big, and is for a guitar player to remember that. My job isn't what it used to be. It's not a rhythmic, at least in the continual sense, like a lot of it, like acoustic guitar player or electric guitar player. You're playing in a worship setting anyway. A lead electric player would be playing little parts here and there and letting ambience go. That's not your job anymore. Your job is to lock with the drummer. So I think that'd be something to keep in mind there for any guitar player.
And create energy up and down.
What do you mean?
The drums and bass together or separately sometimes by simply changing from whole notes to quarter notes to eighth notes to sixteenths and back down anywhere in between, or cutting completely out. Don't miss the opportunity to just cut out sometimes. That can add power to a song.
Yeah.
So by changing those and by changing those together, you can give energy to a song.
I got you. Okay. So you're talking linearly. Linearly.
Yes.
I can say that word. No, that's awesome. That's a good point. And I have noticed that there's been times where, the bass does cut out for effect, and it's kind of like this down part, and then, you'll hit a kick in the bass, on a big whole note, and you're like, oh, there it is. I love that. Some of my faves.
And some acoustic players will try to artificially make that build.
Really?
That the drums and bass have the job of, and it ends up sounding horrible because now they're just banging the heck out of their strings, and their acoustic sounds horrible because they're trying to bang this energy out of it.
Right.
It's somebody else's job. So
that's true. Yeah, I would say, yeah, you're right. I think that the majority, if not almost all of the energy in a song, I don't want to say all of it, but a giant chunk of the energy is drums and bass.
Yeah.
And without them, it's really hard to get that going. I mean, you can be done, I guess, but it's not the same. So awesome. There's some basics, I guess, between the bass and the drums. And I would say that's kind of like, would you agree, bass 101?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say like the first thing to teach a bass player is that, your relationship with rhythm. Other than knowing the notes in your neck. I'm saying like...
Okay. Like, well...
I'm saying once you know your bass, how to play it in your bedroom.
Right.
When they show up on a stage and there's a drummer there now,
yes.
the first thing to teach them with that.
Yeah,
Sorry,
exactly.
yes. Don't neglect your scales and knowing how to actually play the bass, guys. I didn't mean that. Even though Lauren approaches it that way.
Well, whatever works.
I'm just kidding. I love you.
Only for the first several years.
It was... we have fun. And I think I already touched on this, but I think that relationship is important to keep in mind for other instruments as well. It may not be to the same extent, like the kick drum and the guitar player are locking together, but I think for another instrumentalist to ignore what the drums and the bass are doing would be bad. Like, I don't think that serves the music. I think they need to pay attention to rhythmically what's going on in the song, because their job may be to play more in the spaces of that, or to create, like, for instance, if we're picking a part of the drums that I know that I listen to more, or pieces of the drum set that I listen to more as a guitar player, electric guitar player specifically, it'd be the hi-hat and the snare. Only because I'm working, and a lot of us are working with delays, and we're working with things that are rhythmic in nature, and they create this kind of repeating pattern a lot of times, or we're trying to lock in with something that does that. And so most of the time that will be the hi-hat and maybe a snare, the snare, depending on what they're doing, and how we're picking and things like that. So just because you're not locking with the kick drum doesn't mean there's not another part of the kit that you should pay attention to, and see, if you can kind of help out with that rhythm.
Nice.
So, moving on. So again, we're approaching this from the side of the bass, and I'm just trying to sound smart and throw other instruments in there. So, the second part would be how the bass and the guitar work together. Bass electric, bass acoustic, both? Do you concentrate on one more than the other?
In this thing that I was writing, I was mainly concentrating on electric.
Okay.
Because you can get some big old first position chords going that just, for the most part, sound pretty low and everything.
Right.
You can get it into just upper string power chords. You can get into the middle of the neck up high, where you're playing some nice chimey stuff, or maybe even up high doing a lead kind of thing. As a bass player, you want to stay out of the way.
Okay.
So if, for example, they're low and the song kind of calls for it, you can be up higher on your neck, maybe playing like an octave of what you normally would be.
If they are low, meaning the electric guitar player.
Right.
Okay. Coming from a bass player standpoint.
Or if they're up high, they're not going to be kind of holding down that meaty guitar kind of thing. So you want to make sure that you're down low. Unless you're doing some kind of like thing where you're playing a double solo part together, or like, some sort of part that's written that you're both playing together. Doesn't happen a lot in worship.
Oh, I was going to say, does that happen? Where's that song?
Yeah, right? No, that would be more like our old guitar days, our garage days.
Yeah,
but,
that's true. Real rock and roll.
Yeah, real rock, not church rock.
Just kidding.
So anyway,
pitchforks.
just neck relationships. Just like kind of keep an eye and an ear out for where they're going, and try to just try to be the best for what the song calls for, while not letting things drop out.
Okay. Now, you said that you tend to do that with the electric guitar player. Do you really ever pay attention to what the acoustic guy's doing? Be honest. I mean, it's fine if not.
Not a lot. I actually use the acoustic more as a pitch reference.
Oh, okay.
If my acoustic drops out of my mix, sometimes, just kind of with the ambience of the keys and the electric,
Sure, yeah.
I can lose that pitch of the song, what the song's supposed to sound like, and all of a sudden it sounds like the singers are singing in a different key. I'm starting to hear overtones
yeah.
and harmonics and stuff, and it's just like, what is going on? Am I playing the right note right now? So if my acoustic drops out, that's where I kind of use it.
So it's kind of your bedrock of just the actual tonality of the song. Like,
Plus, that makes sense. It's usually the worship leader playing an acoustic, right. So I make sure that I watch and listen to my leader to know ins and outs and cues. And
that's true. We'll hit that in just a second, because I think that actually goes really well into one of the points you made here. Okay, so that's actually a good point. The reference on to where tonality on the electric guitar is happening in comparison with your bass. It's kind of a rough one, because I know that they're not super close. They're like, what, 2 octaves apart or something like that, or whatever it is. So
yeah, I mean, 7th fret E on the A string for bass is your low E string. So
okay,
it's
so
we're kind of 1 octave apart, really. So
still, but it still can get close. It can get a little
again,
messy.
it's kind of more in that that kind of pertains a little bit more to guitar band stuff. I mean, garage band stuff.
Outside of church, secular things.
Yeah, because we've come to this place where right now, at least, the guitar has become kind of this
keyboard?
Ambient
second keyboard.
Second keyboard, kind of adding the little fills in and everything, right. and all of that. And so you don't get into that kind of trading octaves thing where you kind of got to watch as much. You don't get those huge chunky chords and stuff as much.
Right.
So
and I think we're going to hit that in this next point we're going to go over. But I think more on this point, though, one of the things that comes to mind anyway is the relationship on a guitar when you're playing what would be generally considered as a dissonant interval. So like a minor second interval would be like a half step apart, right? So if you play them within the same octave, they sound horrible together. But if you play them 2 octaves apart or something like that, it's much more palatable for the person listening, if you're going for that. And I think the same would apply to bass and guitar probably. That even though you might be an octave apart, the further apart you get, the wider it's going to sound and have a much more space, dimensional aspect to it. Okay. Now here's one I have probably a lot to say on the other outside of bass is so bass and keyboard. I'm interested to hear what the bass and keyboard relationship is, because I've honestly unless outside of the left hand of what a keyboardist could be doing, I don't pay much attention between that specific relationship. That the bass, I'm more of a guitar and keyboard. Like I know that one. So tell me about the bass and the keyboard. How do they interact or shouldn't interact or whatever?
So I've talked to some guys about this that play keyboards a lot, because I'm getting into it now and I'm starting to play it a little bit. And yeah, they're all of that mindset that you really have to watch that left hand. Okay. Because you do get into the bass's realm. And if the bass is going from a 1 and then going down to a 7, that kind of thing, or like playing a third over a 1, a 7 over a 5, that kind of thing. And the keyboard doesn't do the same thing, all of a sudden you've got this same octave dissonance like you were talking about. Right.
That's true. Yeah. Okay.
And vice versa if you're doing what they're not doing or whatever.
Now, does it, you're talking about left hand at this point?
Left hand keyboard, yeah. So they tend to try to stay out of that area, it seems. Not doing like the double octave left hand thing a lot. Like they might add some bass notes in here with one finger or whatever. It seems, and hey, if you guys find that there's a contradiction here, write in and correct us. But I mean, it can be tricky. So if you want to add some low end in as a keyboardist, add it in, but be watching and knowing what your bass player is going to be doing. Right. Usually it's a written part and a feel to the song. It's like, they're going to be going down and covering this note while the guitarist covers the main chord and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I found it's actually a way to tell an experienced keyboard player. If they're in a band and they're just walking on their left, keeping their left hand on there and keeping lots of octaves going, I can tell they probably have not played in a band before, because that gets muddy real quick with a bass player. So I can tell the experienced guys, though, because they'll be much more right hand, or they'll just keep the keyboard in an octave or they'll put their hands in an octave together that aren't worrying about what the bass frequencies are doing. It's just they're using it as another appendage, So I can usually tell right off the bat if the person's a relatively experienced player of keyboards and sounds that keyboards make, or if they're just kind of like a piano player that got stuck into a keyboardist thing. And I think this is a good example to use as like anyone who's training up musicians. If you have someone who plays piano, praise God, that's awesome that he put that in the group. But there's a little bit of tweaking to make them work with the whole band as opposed to just do what you normally do, Mozart.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The right hand, you don't really have to worry about as much. That's more the electric guitar player. That's the relationship there, is that electric guitar and keys of knowing what octaves you're playing, if you're playing similar things, or if you're playing lead lines together, or if they have to jump up an octave or not.
Yep. But Lauren hit it. I was going to say, as an electric guitar player specifically, you and the keyboard player are going to be the two instruments in that band that are going to get in each other's way the most, I think. Because, nowadays keyboard players tend to put a lot of pad stuff underneath and whatever. And then, of course, there's lots of electronic focus songs that have a lot of like arpeggiated things and going on. But I've noticed that if I'm going to get in the way or playing the same octave of an instrument in the band, it's going to be the keyboard player. So you have to be cognizant of that. So if they're doing something, especially if it's like a hook thing or something they're doing that's in the song and you need to put something in there and you don't quite know what to put in there, assuming there's not already a written guitar part, you need to get above them, or maybe just stop playing or just play something very simple and sparse, but get out of their way, because the mixing guy is going to have a hard time with that. It's going to be a lot of energy in one specific frequency band. So yeah, and I hope I'm realizing we're talking about these very high level topics, and I hope that anyone listening is not getting confused on some of the stuff we're talking about, especially if you don't know some theory. Like, we're talking about basic theory stuff, and maybe when we say left hand on a keyboard player, I'm sure there are people out there that are like, what does that even mean? We're just talking about the low frequencies on the keyboard, usually associated with people playing bass notes on the keyboard with their left hand. So sorry if that went.
And the slash chords, like we were talking about, like, we were saying, 5/7. So in the key of G, that would be D over F sharp.
Right.
So.
Exactly. And we have a little section on some of that, so we'll probably talk about if this isn't making sense to some of you. This is actually should be hopefully a kick in the pants to maybe go learn a couple things, because it would help you a lot going forward. But anyway, okay, so that's bass and keyboard, and a little bit of other people in keyboard. I think there's much more to say on that one. So here you have a point here. I'm going to read it word for word. It says, "Follow the leader." What does that mean? Other than the obvious follow a leader.
Right. So
elaborate.
Whoever your leader is that day, the worship leader on stage, they're going to be leading the entire band if they're doing their job right anyway, by vocal cues that are not only letting the congregation know where we're going, but you can tap into those as well and as reminders.
Right.
They may have an MD mic like you have, where you step aside.
Which stands for what?
Music director.
Thank you.
You can step aside and let only the band know things through their in-ears.
Right.
Cues. Some people have the bass player or the keyboard player do it, guitar, whatever. But anyway, follow your leader. So they're going to be letting you know through body language, cues, all of that, where they want to take the song, whether it was pre-planned or not. And
right, that's the big one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of non-planned stuff that you really have to pay attention to.
And so it's really not I memorized the song, I'm just going to pay attention to my drummer, make sure I'm locked in with him, and just kind of space through the entire thing, just kind of get it done.
A to B.
Let's go. I mean, this is a live organic thing. It can change, especially if it's a spirit-led church, and just like if your leader really is kind of tapped into what God wants to do that day, it could totally change whatever you planned even during rehearsals. So follow the leader. Every leader kind of has their own body language, cues, hand signs, things that they use. And so whether they've learned them from other people or or just kind of came up with their own, you've got to kind of learn each leader.
Yeah.
And if you have a lot of leaders in your rotation, that can become difficult because sometimes the signs can be contradictory.
And I was going to say, if that's the case, one of the things that's really helpful is communicate that to them. Say, hey, you know what? I don't know what your language is on stage yet. Do you mind being a little more direct about it? That would really help me. And I promise you probably won't be the only one who thinks that. Goes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, exactly.
So communication is key, and whether or not you have to clarify, I don't get when you're coming down and going up, like you need to say something or you need to move a hand or something.
Yeah. We had one guy a while back that just his normal kind of I'm getting into the music move was he would kick his foot back and tap the end of his toe on the ground behind him. That was usually turn the click on or off for the drummer. And so the click kept going on and off during the song. And we're going, what the heck is going on? Well, he's watching the leader and he's giving him cues from a different leader that he didn't know.
That's spectacular.
And then one, I think, will tell the back line to come out, but it looks like they're kind of waving away a fart.
Okay.
So I don't know how else to put that.
I get you.
So, so like, what is he trying to tell me?
Did he let one go? What's going on?
Then you've got the different hand signs for going to the bridge. It's just all these things kind of have to be communicated ahead of time, and you'll learn them over time.
I tend to have a lot of body movement. I think that cues people. I tend to use my guitar a lot. Like I'll do a lot of up downs with my guitar neck, acoustic guitar if I'm leading from acoustic, or I guess electric too, just because I know that hopefully people are watching me and stuff. But I know you guys have a lot of like hand signals. Like you have a couple leaders that like full on sign language.
Yeah. Well, once we went to the number system,
right.
Our main worship leader, who's our worship pastor, started throwing out hand signals for 1, 6, 4, 5, 2, along with the sign that we use for bridge, or just a big C for chorus, stuff like that. So
yeah. So the takeaway is you need to pay attention.
Yeah.
You cannot get lost in the. Well, I know you guys don't use music anymore, but like if you have music in front of you, or if you close your eyes during worship, that's a big one. You got to keep them open. I had a drummer that he would close his eyes during worship, and I respect that. I think that's awesome that he was getting into it, but he was missing cues left and right. And so I was constantly like, I know it's lame, dude, but you have to keep your eyes open, because if I'm going somewhere, the Spirit's leading, and something's happening, you got to be there. So whoever the leader is,
we kind of have a rule that you're not really allowed to close your eyes.
Right.
Worship as much as you can without falling off, but you can't really close your eyes, or at least not for an extended period of time, because you got to see those cues.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if, like, I think a good rule of thumb would be if you're going to close your eyes, do it where there's no transition coming up. Because more than likely you're going to need to have an eye open for some sort of transition. Okay, we're going to chorus? Yeah, okay, good. We're going to chorus. This is where the bridge? Yeah, okay, we're going to the bridge here. As opposed to, like, having them closed during the verse going into the pre-chorus into the chorus, might miss something. So keep them open. Keep a lookout. Yeah. I think it's a good point you made about how every leader is different, and I don't think anyone would argue that point, obviously, but the I don't know, the underpinnings. I've played with enough leaders now, you even more, I'm sure, that I'm blown away by the difference in people and how they lead or don't lead. I think some of the times, our job is to build up the leader by helping them understand that, hey, it's not real obvious. Like I had said before, it's not real obvious that you're doing this and this. Do you mind, please, like, either say something, like vocally to the audience? Because I know one of the things I like to do, and I've been told does help the band, is I constantly call out where we're going in the song. Like, let's sing out, I'll say something that we're going into, and that helps, I think, the congregation know, and the person with the words knows, okay, we are actually going there, sweet, And especially if it's a part that's changed. If you're changing a part that you've already rehearsed, or if like the Spirit's leading that now let's do this chorus again, or let's come down here where we're not normally going to come down, or whatever. It's especially important that the leader makes that clear to every single person in the room, because everyone needs to know, no, we're doing this. So
yeah, and every leader is going to have their own personality quirks that aren't necessarily a bad thing. It's just part of who they are, and you kind of get to know that over time with working with them. You know, we've got one leader who her natural tendency is to play everything at least 2 beats per minute slower than the page actually says. And so I always just kind of go to the drummer and be like, click that down a couple because she's going to drag us there anyway.
Yeah.
That's just how she feels it. Everything's just a little bit slower to her. And so we just give her that groove before she asks for it, to let her feel comfortable and sink into it, because it's not going to. Yeah,
you know it's going to happen, so you might as well get it. Yeah.
You know, another one, he's a really experienced worship leader, but if he feels like the team's not prepared, he's kind of an anxious mess, and he can't focus on what he needs to focus on because he's worried about everyone behind him. So if you can make sure that everyone at least gives off the feeling that they're ready, they're prepared to go wherever he wants to go, then he can focus on what he needs to do. And you know, we've got another one who's a micromanager. He wants this specific part out of you, and he will spend a half an hour trying to dig that out. And while everybody waits, if you don't have it, you know, and it's like, oh wow, you want that exact okay.
And I think this is let's talk about the thing that I don't think anyone wants to talk about, which is there are going to be leaders that you don't like serving under. Take it from me. I've done it. I'm sure that there's been that for you. There are leaders that I just cringe when I have to serve under them because I don't like their leadership style. I think some of it stems from I'm a leader in other aspects, and so I have a hard time sometimes, not always, under other leaders because maybe our personality types are different or whatever. But that's going to happen to anybody. And I think what really helps in that, one is just do your best to get over yourself, because sometimes you just got to suck it up and just ask God, hey, give me some grace for this person, you know. But the other one too is just communication. I think we keep pounding that home, but I think communication in those situations help at least ease the fact that you're not going to be frustrated the whole time as much as maybe you would have if you wouldn't have said something. And I don't mean calling them out on something, but like we had been talking about multiple times, hey, you know, I'm not getting the feeling that you're maybe this transition right here, you didn't really say anything, or we didn't know you're going there. Even if you say, hey, you know, that kind of, you know, truth and love type thing, hey, that kind of frustrated me when you said blah in front of people. Or in the case of that micromanager, you know, some people can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, if that happens to you and they're like, stop the whole band practice, and they just start zeroing in on you, you know, I think you have an obligation, if that makes you uncomfortable, to pull them aside, maybe outside of the band situation. It's like, you know what, they may be real uncomfortable. If we need to do that again, do you mind maybe backstage in the green room, or maybe we can go over that there or something like that, because it's going to pull me out of everything, and I'm going to be in a bad place the whole time, and I can't worship. So I think it's important that communication happens, even if it's uncomfortable, because it's going to help in the long run. Because our job is to lead worship. And if you're all of a sudden, you know, you get pulled out of that and you're in, man, that guy or that girl, man, that you can't anymore. It's terrible.
Well, and everyone's going to have a different style that they bring too, which I think brings us into our next section.
Yes.
So
conform and be yourself.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So one of the things that they told me when I joined the team, because I came from this 70s, 80s hard rock kind of background.
By the way, can I take an aside and just tell you, last night, and please don't judge me for this out there, because it's an R-rated movie. I watched Rockstar.
Yes.
And the whole time I was just thinking of like you and me and just our rock band. That's one of my
favorites, yes.
Yeah. So I was just like, wow, stand up and shout. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, I'm sorry.
I love it. It makes me cry every time at the end. How the 90s killed music. Anyway.
Anyway. We've just offended 80% of everyone who listens to us.
I know. Oh, my favorite part is when he's in the choir.
Oh, yeah, and he just has that high note. Anywho, we digress. Man. Sorry.
Okay, so yeah, everybody comes from a different background, but the worship team and the church you're serving in has a certain sound that has been crafted and made by whoever your worship pastor is.
Right.
And so you really do have to learn to conform to what is there, but bring the
flavor,
the flavor that you have to the team in a way that builds the team up instead of distracting from it.
Right.
I know, that sounds really weird, but that's basically what we have to do. You have to figure out what the DNA of your church is and figure out how can I use my past experiences and my talents that I've built up playing probably different music and bring that in a way that makes the team better.
And can I tell you that goes both ways, which is kind of cool, in that sometimes you'll come from a background and be comfortable there, and then you'll come into, say, a church with a probably different DNA than you're used to as far as how you play guitar or bass or drums, or and you may take some stuff from that back into your normal DNA world or wherever you're comfortable and apply it there. I've learned plenty of things from, like, that really kind of paid off. Like I have X skill that I may not use all the time, but now I understand it, or now I understand, whatever that I learned somewhere else. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think people need, but sorry, I don't mean to cut you off because I know you had something to say, but I think it's a good thing. Like in our church, I actually want the person's personality to be in what they play. Now, it may need to be, ambient, have some delay, do something that they're not used to, and they have to learn a new skill or a new way to use an effect or play bass or whatever. Maybe don't play so many fills if you're a drummer, that kind of thing. Simple kick drum pattern or something that they're not used to doing, and they have to consciously pull themselves back. But I think that you can, like you were saying, have a personality that's still you playing drums or playing bass or guitar. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know where I was going with that. Good.
I know this applies more to drums than bass, but I think more about drums for some reason, even though I cannot play them. We have this rule that double kick pedals are not allowed in the building, ever.
Okay.
The mindset basically is
that what that sign means in your foyer where it says you will be shot if you have a double kick pedal? I didn't realize.
So basically the mindset is anything that you'd be able to do with that, you should be able to do with one foot, because anything more is distasteful in worship.
Oh, in worship. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without the in worship, I'm like, that's kind of subjective.
In the thing that we've built, in the way that we sound and everything, and the style that we're going for, that our worship pastor has built. Now, for me, I would love to see a double kick pedal in there. Not necessarily for like this, screamo metal kind of through the whole song.
There are some I'm sure would enjoy that.
Just for those, and yeah, some of this you can do with one foot if you're really good, but just kind of
like flam stuff.
Yeah, flam stuff, and for the end of songs, maybe kind of big cymbal fills and all that. Whatever it ends up being, it's like it's. But
just the drummer would be tempted.
It's just a tool. It's just an extra tool. It's like, well, why do you have two toms? Can't you just do it with one? Or whatever. It could be anything. Why do you have three cymbals? You should only have one cymbal.
But I think that in that argument, though, the drummer would have to have two separate kick drums, both of which are tuned separately. And then you'd be like, but they're different tonalities.
Yeah. So anyway, it's one of those things where, like,
hear that, drummers?
I get it. I understand why we don't have it, because a lot of people would be tempted to misuse it. But
right. And sometimes
it would just kind of bless me if we had it every once in a while.
It would bless me. Double kick blesses me. You heard it here, folks. So. Double kick drum blesses Lauren. So the more the better. Now, are you a fan of double kick pedals or double kick, like two kick drums? Any way you can get it?
It depends.
Yeah. The drum set looks cooler with two.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's completely unnecessary in a worship setting.
Oh, yeah. But a double kick pedal.
But a double kick set with the full rack and awesome. The 20 cymbals. And
Alex Van Halen. As long as they look like Alex Van Halen.
Get some explosions going behind that and some lights. Tommy Aldridge. Makes an awesome concert. But look up that's not
Tommy Aldridge if you haven't already.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
That's awesome. That's a good thing. Good word on that.
I'm sorry. Just this whole where you came from thing. We actually did have a drummer that we had to break the habit of twirling his stick in between every single snare hit.
That's awesome.
It was unconscious to him. He just did it now. Just every single snare hit had a stick twirl.
I don't know.
And it's just like, okay, you need to stop that.
Unless they got complaints it was distracting, I think that should bless people. All right.
Oh man. Anyway,
so next section here we got worship and pay attention, and I think we kind of delved into this. But go ahead, and we'll see if anything repeated.
Well, yeah. In a nutshell, basically, you're up there as an example of worship to lead God's people to Him, not to perform for them or any of that. So, if they see a model of worship coming out of everyone on the team, then that allows them to worship freely.
Right.
And so the more you're worshiping, the better. However, if you're lost in worship and not paying attention to everyone else on stage with you and to the leader, then you're going to be missing all the cues. You're not going to know where everything's going. So it's a balance.
Yeah.
That's basically it in a nutshell.
Yeah. This is what we're going to do. We're going to stop.
Okay.
We're going to have a part 1 and a part 2 of this. Because I think this is really good stuff, and we have at least that amount of time that we've already gone left. And so I want to make sure that we give it as much attention as we can, because I think this stuff's important. I think of the things we talk about on this show, or things we've heard about or read about, this is probably one of the most important, which is the relationship between members, both musically, and I think even we've delved into some of the non-musical side of it. So I want to make sure that we give it its due time. Yeah. So we're going to stop. We're going to hit the brakes. So we left you with that. Tune in in February, because we're definitely going to hit up part 2, and you get to hear even more about this. But go ahead and send us any questions you have, or comments, or hate mail, whatever we've got. Hit us up on all the normal platforms. You can look us up, youtube.com/Academy of Worship, which I keep saying every single time we're going to do more, but you know what? We're closer and closer to doing more YouTube stuff. So please stay tuned to that. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and just wait, because we will be putting some new stuff out. Facebook.com/Academy of Worship online. Follow us there. We're sort of active on that. We're terrible about social media. I'm realizing this now. Like, we just are terrible at it.
Because we're old.
We are old. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so I think, you can also email us. I've never done this. We have an email address technically. It's academyofworship@gmail.com. So if you ever want to email us at that, feel free. Send in questions, the hate mail I was talking about earlier, whatever.
We should try a Periscope sometime.
Periscope. Yeah, that'd be kind of fun. Maybe send us an email whether or not you want to hear Periscope. And then if
anybody would tune in.
Yeah, really. Which we need, I think, Twitter for, right? So we should probably get it. Anyway, we're old. We just told you, you know this. If you know us, you know that we're old.
Our email is at
AOL
or GeoCities, something.
GeoCities. That's awesome. Anyway, this has been awesome. I can't wait for part 2, and we want to thank all you guys for joining us. Again, Happy New Year. We're really looking forward to this new year moving forward. And you know what? If you don't mind, guys, you guys are our mouthpieces out there. If you like the show, and please share it with the people you know that may get a kick out of some of the stuff we say, or even get incensed at it, because that's part of a podcast. You want to shake your fist at somebody, but share it. Get them all hooked up. I didn't mention also on iTunes, just look us up, Academy of Worship, and we'll come up on iTunes. And if you want to hit Podomatic, it's academyofworship.podomatic.com. That's our actual host site. Thanks, guys. We had a good time. I've been Chris Davis.
I guess I've been Lauren.
Are you sure?
I guess, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you look like him.
Okay.
Anyway, thanks for joining us in the Academy of Worship podcast. We will catch you on the flippity flop.
Bye.
See ya.